All right, everybody, thank you back. This is Sheriff Lamb, and we're here with another podcast for FAIR, the Federation for American Immigration Reform. And we got a great guest today. I'm pretty excited about this. This is my good friend and a true patriot, to be honest with you. You have been honestly leading the way on this border thing. He is the vice president of the National Border Patrol Council. And you probably have seen him. If you haven't seen him, you've been hiding under a rock. But this is my good friend Cueto. Thanks for coming out.
It's awesome.
Today,
Thank you for being, having me on here. It's a big pleasure and an honor, honestly, because I said it before, and I always talk to people when they ask me, well, where's Sheriff Lamb on this? Look, Sheriff Lamb is the one sheriff that his county wasn't on the border, but he was the actual true border sheriff. That's that's the best way I can explain it.
I appreciate it. And we're out in my county right now. We're on the south end of the county, and I know you've worked this area, right, where we're at right now. We're in an area where this has historically been. You may not be able to see it. Some of the stuff you may be able to see, the water jugs, the camouflage clothes, the carpet shoes, littered throughout this area. We're about 65 miles off the border right here, but this is a hot spot for a long time, and I know you worked it.
Right, and it still is a hot spot. Honestly, this is a spot where a lot of individuals have still continued to come through here. Obviously, now under the current administration, you have a lot of areas where they just turn themselves in, but you're still getting drugs in the country. There's a reason why we have a high volume of fentanyl, heroin, and methamphetamine still in the United States, and it's because of this very spot. Yeah. Some people may want to think, hey, what's coming in through Texas? So the groups are still coming in through Texas, but those individuals are more turning themselves in. This area where we're at right now continues to be the #1 area in the entire country for encounters. And it continues to be that because, it's so wide open and it's easier to come across and not be detected. At the same time, during the Obama administration, and we can expect some more happen during the Biden administration, but the numbers weren't kept correct. But under the Obama administration, this area alone was responsible for over 40% of all the drug seizures that were seized in the entire country.
Wow. And this is the area for those gotaways we hear about. Yeah. We don't get a lot of layups in the Tucson sector.
No.
And I know you know about all the sectors. Tucson sector has predominantly been leading the way in the gotaways.
Absolutely.
And this is the area where those gotaways come through.
You're right. So this is the area for the gotaways. A lot of people don't talk about the gotaways. I've had reporters out that I've done interviews with, and they say, okay, we'll talk about the gotaways if you can show me the gotaways. Well, you and I know if we could show you the gotaways, there wouldn't be gotaways. There would be gotchas, right? But yeah, this is the area. Tucson sector is #1 in encounters, and it continues to go back and forth #1 in gotaways because it's so remote from everything else. But you're right. This is the hotbed. This is where everything continues to still come through. We have the highways right down the road, so they know they can come through here. The groups, and I mean, you and I, we were talking about it. We were walking through here. The majority of the grass out here and the vegetation, it's been flattened out because you're still getting groups through here. It continues to happen. Hopefully, we're going to have more manpower to be able to get out of the processing centers and apprehend some of the groups that are coming in. But we know what we can expect under the Trump administration. We're going to have more resources. We're going to have the help. We're going to have the right policies. But this is going to become a hotbed once again.
Yeah, I have no doubt it's going to become a hotbed. And I'm glad you mentioned about the resources. And I know you've been in Border Patrol for how long now?
Over 2 decades.
2 decades, man. And you've had a stellar career. You've worked in it. Now you represent the men and women. I get asked this all the time. What's the morale like? And I want to hit on that in a second. But you talk about the resources. You've been doing this for over 2 decades. We've been watching it for a long time. It's changed a lot. But I keep hearing this narrative throughout this political cycle, and I know we don't want to get into politics, but the narrative was we need to get more resources to Border Patrol. And I kept telling people, and I think you probably have the same answer, the resources are there. You got to let them do your job. Am I wrong?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you hear that all the time, and I think that's what scares people. Even now, President Trump is going to be the next president of the United States once again, and you're hearing a lot of individuals, the far radical left, as I like to say, they're talking about, oh, it's going to cost a lot of money, it's going to deportation. No, the resources are there. We just need the right policies. So you have agents that, they'll gladly come out and work the field. They haven't been able to because of the amount of individuals that are coming across asking for asylum. That puts them and sticks them in the processing centers. And even this, this area. You know this area very well. You've been very vocal. And when you catch a group out here, you're looking at least 2 hours before you get to a processing facility. And then so those 2 hours, the agents are out of the field and there's no one out here. And who knows that? The cartels.
Absolutely.
The cartels, they run very good intel. They're constantly seeing the area. They know where agents are at, where they're not. And I mean, it's just, they don't have a budget, first and foremost, right? They don't have to meet budget restraints at the end of the year. And second of all,
And
we're
it's
in
forced
lawful
labor.
Yeah,
A lot of
yes,
it's forced labor.
Forced labor. And at the same time, we've been doing this, you know, we're in law enforcement. We've been, you know, trying to get the job done. Those individuals, those are family businesses. You're looking at 5-6 decades of human smugglers.
Oh, yeah.
And they continue to do that, so they perfect everything. So I think that makes a big difference as well, is, you know, they have a lot of vested time and effort, and they're under this administration, they've just made so much money. So much money.
Speaking about the money, I'm hearing there's a lot of power shifting in the cartels. I'm hearing now that Chapitos are now joining up with CJNG.
Right.
And I was telling somebody the other day, you know, when you change and you start to secure the border, these guys have been making so much money over the last 4 years. It's gone from what, $500 million a year to $13 billion a year.
Yes.
A lot of that being human smuggling, fentanyl, the rise of that, methamphetamines. But there's going to be an inevitable power struggle, is there not?
You're seeing it now. So you're seeing it now. I got friends, you know, on the south side of the border, people that go down there and they send me information at the same time. They tell me what's going on. You're seeing, the 50 caliber machine guns. You're seeing all our gunfights is places near Caborca, where you're seeing the shootings that are going on for sometimes 5-6 hours. 5-6 hours of nonstop shooting. And you're right. It's a $1 billion industry that, you know, they're making so much money off of. And one thing people need to realize, when you start seeing the pictures of these vehicles that have riddled in bullet holes on the Mexican side, the bullets that they're purchasing in Mexico, one single box of 50 rounds costs $100 in Mexico.
Wow.
And they're spending a lot of money. They're going through ammo like crazy. But that's because you're right. There's so much of the power shift. You know, you have the people, the Sinaloa cartel, trying to get in power with somebody else. You had the arrest of El Mayo Zambada. That caused all kinds of issues down there.
His son is pretty ticked off.
Everyone's upset. So there's all this war. So how are they funding it? They're funding it by continuing to bring drugs into the country. They're showing how much money they're making because, you know, the vehicles that they're driving and the monster vehicles that they bulletproof out there. And at the same time, the groups that are coming across, those individuals are used as nothing but a distraction so they can get the drugs in, because that's where their big money maker is.
Yeah. So we talk about, I know you've been doing this for 2 decades. I was a sheriff under the previous administration. Then I was a sheriff for the last 4 years. You've been in Border Patrol this time. How has the last 4 years been? And what do you anticipate to be the change with this new, with the Trump administration coming back in? What do you anticipate? First of all, tell me about what this is, because I know you and I've been screaming about it. Tell everybody a little bit about what's some of the biggest issues you've been facing.
Look, the biggest issue right now, the last 4 years, is the lack of manpower on the border. Not manpower within the agency. It's on the border because they have them stuck in processing centers. That's a big issue that continues to plague the agents. The morale was down in the dumps. It's the worst I've ever seen.
Can I just interject on that? Yeah. Because we flew our helicopter from San Miguel, which, if people listening don't know where that is, that's in the middle of the reservation, all the way to Nogales, probably what, 100 and something miles easy? We didn't see a single Border Patrol truck, and we didn't see a single MSC truck. Right. We saw military from Mexico on the other side, but we did not see any Border Patrol. So to your point, I just wanted to illustrate.
Yeah, and that's the big area that we continue to talk about, and people don't want to touch on it. They don't want to say anything about it. You're talking about the Tohono O'odham Reservation, which is in the U.S. and also in Mexico. However, Mexico doesn't recognize it like the U.S. does. You can't purchase land on the reservation on the U.S. side, but the Mexican side, they don't care who purchases it on that area. You're talking about over 60 linear miles with the U.S. border, where there's absolutely areas that there's no barricades whatsoever.
Like you don't 3 even strands of barbed wire fence, or maybe
sometimes even nothing, and you don't know the line of demarcation there. And those are the areas that groups continue to come. Now, the stations that work in that area, you're looking at a 2 to 3 hour drive to a station.
Yeah.
So the drug cartels know, they utilize that spot so they can send the big groups in, and then it takes forever for agents to go out there and do the transport. And as an example, we all saw the video, and you saw the video, everyone's talked about the video of the 300 individuals that rushed an area in El Paso. horrific.
Horrific.
Everyone sees
Despicable.
that and they hate it, and they've copied that video and said, look, this is the problem with the border. That same weekend alone, there was over 3,000 that entered in that area of the Tohono O'odham reservation, but nobody saw it.
Nobody talked
It
about
goes back to, can you show me a picture of the gotaways, right? But nobody talked about it because it didn't have that, that star power of having the visual. But this has been the hotbed. This has been the area. And it's frustrating for me and it's frustrating for the agents because we're continuously seeing the groups come through, the gotaways and everything else. And look, you're the only sheriff that's even speaking up. And it's hard for us because our leadership doesn't speak up.
I know.
And they can't speak up because, hey, they're scared of the end of the year bonuses, wherever it may be. But you're an individual that's been a leader within law enforcement, and you're the only one that's spoken up. And I think that's where we're having issues and we have problems, that not enough people are aware of what truly is happening out here.
I agree. I mean, thank you for noticing, because I'm trying to stick up for you guys, for America, for Americans. We have a responsibility to protect our communities. I do everything I can to work hand in hand with Border Patrol, and we love our partnership with the guys.
You
on
do
the
a
ground.
fantastic job. And let me just interject on this one. When everyone was attacking agents over horse patrol and whippings, there was only one individual in a leadership position that actually was speaking in front of the cameras. And it was you.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of it. And that's why you've seen it. You see the frustration. You work hand in hand with these individuals. You see when they're out there, you run into them. They're in your community. You're in our communities. And we see it. And I think that's the frustration that we've seen the last 4 years. So there is a huge, expectancy, and we're hopeful that something's going to change because we worked under the last first 4 years of President Trump. So we're very, very hopeful that something's going to happen, and it comes down to policies. And the American public needs to know that. It's going to come down to policies. Don't be scared when people start saying, oh, it's going to take all this finances and all these resources. No, it's already taking our resources away. You've noticed it because your officers have to respond to, vehicle damages or traffic accidents or whatever it may be. And you guys have to wait forever for immigration to show up as well. But they're too busy processing in the center. So I think, we're very hopeful that moving forward, we have the resources. Now we're going to be able to utilize the policies so we can work with those resources correctly.
And a lot of people don't realize the laws are already in place for you guys to be able to do your job. One of the frustrating things that I hear them talk about, I'm at two things, because I want to go briefly back to what you said. Mm-hmm. I kept hearing them talk about Texas, and yeah, it was a big problem there. At the same time, I got a phone call from one of the Border Patrol higher-ups here in Arizona. It was on Thanksgiving Day. And she called me and said, Sheriff, I can't rely on the other people in this area. I need to know if you can help me. I have one Border Patrol agent in Ajo, and I have 800 people already there and another large group on its way, and there's only one guy. It was preposterous to me. So I know that they were struggling with the morale and the allocation of resources. Mm-hmm. They had resources. The allocation of resources, because of the policies in DC, weren't working.
No, absolutely.
And so yeah, that was a big problem. The other frustrating thing that I have is they're talking about. You hear people talk about the border. They know nothing about it. They don't ever come down here. They don't spend time working with us. How many times have you offered to give tours that nobody takes you up on?
I've said my door's wide open. I'll take anyone to a tour that I can take. And you're right. You don't get enough people that want to come down here. I've had politicians that I've spoken to on both sides of the aisle. I will tell you that. Yeah. That I've said, hey, come on down, and they said, we've seen the pictures. We know what's going on. That's another demoralizing factor that I get from these people. We've seen the pictures. We know what's going on. That to me tells me that you have an agenda, and your agenda isn't really trying to find out what's going on. You have enough verbiage to talk about it. You don't need to have the visual, and that's just frustrating for everyone. But you're right. Look, we've been out here. We've seen it. We know what's going on. We just need the rest of the world to really understand what's going on, and I think that's important because I get asked, what is it you want America to know? I want them to know that you keep hearing people with the slogan of every state's a border state. You're right. Every state's a border state right now because of the mess that we've had, but every border state is in a chaotic state, and that's the difference.
That's a great way to put it. That is a great way to put it. So we got this new administration, new policies. If you could get in and just say, hey, look, this is what we should do. What are some of the things you'd like to see done? And I don't want you to put
It's gonna
yourself
be
in
easy.
in a
It's gonna
pickle.
be easy.
Tell everybody what you think from the Border Patrol standpoint. How can we help morale? How can we secure the border? How can we fix immigration? I know it's a lot. What does Art Del Cueto say?
Right off the bat, stop, catch, and release. That's
Amen.
the number one thing. The minute you stop, catch, and release, everything else falls in place like a domino effect. The minute you stop, catch, and release, the numbers are going to drop tremendously. Now that's going to allow you to have the right proper agents out in the field so they're able to perform their jobs with the drug traffickers that are bringing drugs into the country. So you're already killing, several birds with one stone at that point. And when you start doing that, important, you have to really start prosecuting the individuals that come across. Don't have a threshold of so many pounds and it fails to meet prosecution guidelines. You need to really be strict and prosecute individuals that are bringing drugs into the country all across the board, regardless of whether you catch them on the reservation or outside the reservation. That's always been a big issue that we've been preaching about and talking about for a long, long time. And this is where you're going to get me in trouble, but I'm going to say it anyway. You got to start doing some southbound operations.
Yeah. No, that's true.
The feds got to do some southbound operations. If drugs are coming across, if groups are coming across north, and you see these individuals that are making billions and billions of dollars on the south end, that's because money's going south. So you have to start.
Ammo.
And
you
ammo.
talked about how expensive ammunition is in
You have to
Mexico.
start doing southbound operations. That's important.
So, to your point, my canine officers are out here doing southbound operations every night. We're looking for guns and we're looking for money and bullets going back to Mexico, because that's look, if you can stop the flow of the money, it hurts the cartel.
It hurts the cartel.
And so I agree with you. And we've worked with the ATF, we've worked with Border Patrol, we're working with all sorts of federal partners, HSI,
Correct.
to try to capture not just the inbound, the bodies and the
Gotta catch that
drugs,
southbound.
catching the southbound.
Yes, the
stuff
port
as
of
well.
entries need to
I'm
get on
glad you
board.
mentioned that, because I think that is a grossly overlooked
Yes.
issue that we're dealing with. in law enforcement.
That's a big issue that they haven't really pinpointed enough. And I have friends that work at the ports of entries, and they say it's been years since they've ever done a real southbound operation at the ports. And that's what's affecting us. It's going to take an all-group effort. I talk to people and say, "Oh, well, how's it going to work? You got all these other law." You have law enforcement agencies out there that are willing to help.
Yeah.
And we got to weed out the ones that aren't willing to help. That's why local.
We know a few.
Yes,
we know a few.
Local elections are very important.
Yes.
Local election, who you elect in different political positions is important, but it's just as effective and important of who you elect to be your sheriff in your county.
Amen.
You got to make sure that you have somebody that. I don't need someone that wants to change the law. I just need someone that wants to enforce the law.
And we haven't been, I get people say it all the time, "Hey, you guys have done a really good job in Pinal County." We're not doing anything special other than upholding the law.
That's it.
We're helping our federal partners. We're helping our local partners. We uphold the law. We protect your constitutional rights. But in the end, if you break the law, we're going to hold you accountable as well.
That's what it comes
And
down
I know that's what the Border Patrol agents want to do as well. I want to say to all the Border Patrol agents out there, they do an amazing job. These men and women deserve all of the thanks, because you guys have just had it rough over the last several years. I'm hoping this was a major boost to morale. I ran into a couple guys at a store just yesterday, Border Patrol agents, and I said, "Hey man, how's the morale?" He's like, "Oh, went through the roof overnight." And so I loved hearing that. And I know you probably loved hearing it and seeing it.
I'm gonna love it even more, once, after year one, when we're actually seeing some changes. So I'm gonna share a story.
Okay.
First time I met you, we were in DC for a fair event. We were out there. It was your first time out there. We're sitting at one of the restaurants down there, the Dubliner.
Oh yeah.
You're by yourself, and you and I were the only ones wearing cowboy hats. And I went over to talk to you. I said, I introduced myself. I knew who you were. And we sat down there and talked, and you were just a new sheriff elected at that time.
That's right.
And I said, "Oh, well, what are you going to do different?" and you looked at me and you said, "I just want to make sure everything turns out okay." And you know what? Years later, you're not in that sheriff position no more, but you've done your job very well, and I want to thank you. You made sure everything was okay.
It means a lot.
Thank you so much.
Well, it was an honor to work with people like yourself. You're a true patriot. What's next for Art?
I don't know yet. We'll see. We'll figure it out.
You're getting there.
I got that 8 ball, and I've been shaking it and see what answers I get out of it. So we'll see. We'll see what I do next. People have asked me that already. They've asked me, "Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? Are you going to get a position?" My ultimate goal is as corny as when I talked to you and you said you just wanted things to get better. My ultimate goal is get the right leader in place and make sure everything turns out okay. because my first and always love has been the agents. You know, the people in green. I do it all the time on my Instagram
And
on my social media. I hashtag, you know, agents' voices must be heard, and my heroes in green, and they continue to be my heroes in green regardless. So we'll see what happens.
Well, hopefully you stay very intimately involved.
I will.
Whatever you
I
do.
will.
Border Patrol needs you. America needs you. You are a patriot. my
Thank you.
friend.
I appreciate it.
And thank you for all you do. And to all our men and women with Border Patrol, God bless you. You guys got a great leader here. And I know he's going to put you in good hands too. So let's just keep praying for this country.
Let's keep praying.
Let's keep moving in the right direction.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us on your show. God bless.
God bless you.